Good evening, YouTube pipe smokers. Prairie Piper here on a Saturday night, a couple days after Halloween. Hopefully, everybody had a fun and eventful night. Here in the prairies, it was dry, cool, but not too cold. Fairly good evening. Sometimes, out here on the prairies, we can have snow, we can have slush, we can have sleet, we can have rain. So you never know what you're going to get this time of year, October 31st. But it was dry, which was nice, and it was fairly cool, but not cold. So um, we had a lot of kids, hung out with the neighbors, had a couple of beers. Yeah, it was a good night. So hopefully you guys had a good night. Um, this video is going to be about um, pipe books. Now I don't know. When I was bringing my collection out here to showcase and just to kind of go over, there's more than I thought, so I might have to split this up into two. So we'll see. But the first half, if I end up splitting it in two, the first half will be, pipe books from from the 20th century, and then the second half will be 21st. So we'll see how far we get here. I'm not going to go into, it's not going to be a comprehensive review of each book. I'm just going to give you the date, the year it was published, what I think of it, and then just kind of sort of move on, just sort of give a couple of minute review on it of what I thought it was. So, smoking some very aged HH Old Dark Fired. I have to say, as you guys know, I like my tobacco strong. I like the Old Dark Fired and Bold Kentucky are amazing. I must admit, though, this has calmed down quite a bit. This is probably the oldest aged tin I've ever smoked. It was from 2012. I think it was the first year that Mac Baren put out the HH series. So, I mean, 2022, what is that, 13 years of age? And it's toned down the Kentucky quite a bit. It's still very rich and flavorful, but it doesn't have that kick to it that I kind of like. I don't mean nicotine kick, I mean flavor kick, taste kick. Anyways, that's what I'm smoking. Let me just layer up here. Relight, rather. So let that be a lesson. I love aged tobacco, but for some tobaccos there is a limit. So there is a shelf life for some aged. Okay. Like I said, this is not comprehensive. These are just the books that I have, the pipe books that I have. First one is simply called The Pipe by Georges Herment. I say Georges because I believe he's French. It's 164 pages, published by Simon & Schuster in 1957. And classic pipe book, typical pipe book, what you would expect from the 50s, I guess, in terms of goes through a brief history of pipe smoking, clay pipes, porcelain pipes, and then gets into, a little bit of the cultivation about tobacco and stuff like that. So it talks about tobacco, history of the pipes, and then pipe manufacturers, and then best practices, how to choose a pipe, then how to smoke a pipe, how to clean a pipe. So pretty basic, but good, fun read. A lot of these books, typically you're going to get off of eBay, and you can decide, some of them people want like an arm and a leg for them, and it's kind of unfortunate. I'm not going to go off on a rant, but I find over the years, people seem to want a lot of money for used books, not just ones that are hard to find, but used books in general seem to be worth a lot more now than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But maybe that's inflation. I don't know. Anyways, that's a fun book. I recommend all these books. Some of them I might have some negative things to say about them, but if you like to read about pipes, all these books are good to have, every single one of them. Here's another one by Carl Weber, who was also a pipe maker. There's actually a lot of, I don't want to go into the whole history about Carl Weber, but he was quite well known. Some of you may know him, Carl Weber. Weber's Guide to Pipes and Pipe Smoking. This was 1962. Also published by Simon and Schuster. It was a um, looks like it was published by a subsidiary of Simon and Schuster, but it does say Simon and Schuster. This is a really good book too, kind of like the art of pipe smoking, pipe accessories, how pipes are made, the pipe as a hobby, and it's a little smaller. This is 125 pages, so a little smaller than the previous pipe book there, but a very good read as well. And I can say, having read these back to back recently, there's always going to be similar information, right? I mean, you can only write so much about pipes. It's going to be original and unique. But there's enough in either one of them that you could read them back to back and you're still going to learn some different things, right? That's the cool thing about pipe smoking, is everyone has their own interpretation and experiences to share. So, and the third one that I have, this could be, well, this is one of the best ones I think ever published, even despite its when it was published. And this was published, it only had one edition, it's only one printing. And where is the date? Why can I not find the date? I believe 1974. And I'm sure many of you have seen this, Book of Pipes and Tobacco by Carl Awa Jr. And for those of you that do not know, Carl Awa Jr. was married to Mary McNeil. They started McClellan Tobaccos together. And then eventually Mike McNeil came into the picture, and they continued, Mary and Mike continued to produce McClellan's until they shut her down in 2017, 2018. So that's kind of the pedigree you get out of this book. This book was published by Random House, 1974, like I said. Gives you the history of pipes, history of tobacco, kind of the different cuts of tobacco. This, out of the previous two that I've shown you, is probably the best one so far of the ones I've reviewed. This is a really good book. Again, there was only one printing of this in '74. There hasn't been any other ones. It's a very popular pipe book. It's a hardcover. It's got a lot of really beautiful, glossy pictures in it. Very high quality book. Highly recommend this book. Naturally, some of the stuff's right when you're dealing with books that are 40, 50, 60 years old. Some of it's going to be dated, but there's a lot of really, really cool images of pipes in this book, and there's a lot of information here, still relevant information, especially from a kind of a historical value. So highly recommend this one. Again, I like them all, but if you're gonna, of the three that I previously just showed, I would start with this one first. Again, not very cheap. You're probably going to pay Canadian 70 or 80 bucks for it if you're lucky. I can't remember what I paid for this, but I got a good price for it. If you look on Amazon, look on eBay, you can find deals, but if you want it today, you want it now, you might pay 100 bucks for it with shipping. So, what I will say about these first three that's very interesting, this is Random House. This was Random House, and the other two pipe books were Simon and Schuster. Right? These are big publishing houses. Random House and Simon and Schuster, big, big, big publishing houses. You're not going to get those guys today publishing anything about tobacco. In fact, it's kind of a surprise that even in 1974 that Carl was able to get this book published by Random House, because I think they were pulling away from a lot of tobacco stuff even in the 70s. But it goes to show you how important pipes were in everyday culture in the 50s and 60s and even 70s, when you could get big publishing houses to pay you to write a book. That doesn't happen now. The vast majority of all the books written today are, on pipes, are either self-published or put together by a collection of people in the community. And I'll get into some of the other ones later. In terms of how they're published. There's no major publishing houses publishing pipe books today. But thank God there are ways to get them out there. So anyways, we're moving into the 80s now. But let me just grab my pipe here. Of course it went out. So I just basically went on the website on the eBay one day, And I do this often, I just search out pipe books. You know, some you get, you've never heard of them before, you buy them and they're bunk, like they actually suck. And I'm not reviewing those ones. These ones that I'm showing you, they're good pipe books. They're worth the 40, 50 bucks, in my opinion. So I'm not claiming these are the ones from the 60s and the 70s to have. These are just the ones that I've bought over the years that I've been impressed with, you know, and that I recommend, you know, having them in your collection. So 1980s, I'm sure those of you that have a few pipe books or collect them are aware in the 1980s and 90s, Richard Hacker was kind of the guy. You've probably seen a number of these. This was the Ultimate Pipe Book, published by Richard Carlton Hacker. This is a great book. This is 300 pages, published by Autumn Gold Publishing. I don't know if that's self-published. Regardless, if it's not, it's definitely a small publisher. And this was 1984. This book is not cheap. I paid close to $100 for it. It's in very good shape. This is one of the best pipe books out there in terms of the history of pipe smoking, how to smoke a pipe, how to select a pipe, briar, the history of briar, you know, different cuts of tobacco. It is dated, there's no doubt about it, but it's a really, really good read. It's well written. I should say all these books are well written. Hard to say. But this is kind of probably the second one that I would recommend as the top two pipe books you might want to get a hold of. So, and then, so that was 84. And then soon after that, Richard Hacker published The Christmas Pipe. This is the only book on Christmas pipes that I've ever seen. And this is 1986. This one's also very expensive. I do not believe it ever had, came with a dust jacket. This is a really cool book. It's got some poems in it. Talks about a little bit, not a lot. This is 139 pages. Talks a little bit about the tradition of pipe smoking during Christmas time, which is really neat. To me, Christmas is very special for pipe smoking. You know, talks about the difference kind of between a Christmas pipe and pipe of the year. One's kind of more of a North American term. You know, pipe of the year is more of a European term. He kind of goes over that. Talks about Christmas tobacco. I'm going to do a more in-depth review of this coming up in December, so I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but this is a really, really cool book. There's not a lot of books like this out there. In fact, like I said, it's the only one that I know that's about Christmas pipes. And it goes over, obviously, it's supremely dated in terms of, he goes over all the major manufacturers at the time of who started to put out Christmas pipes. So it lists them. There's not a lot of them because this is, you know, mid 80s. I mean, everybody does, you know, Christmas pipes are a big business now. But you're not going to find all that information in here, just because of, you know, it's older. This is the second last one that Richard Hacker wrote. This is 99, Rare Smoke. This is all about collecting pipes. Now, there is so much that's come out since this was published. I don't know how accurate the information in here is, and I'm not suggesting it's inaccurate. There's just so much more information. I think you could probably find online now, emailing the manufacturers, getting a hold of them. This was kind of, I mean, at the time though, when you published this in 99, nobody knew anything about kind of the behind the scenes of what was happening at Dunhill, what was happening at Savinelli. So this is kind of, and again, I think Richard's experience of pipe collecting in the 80s and 90s is probably different than things are today, but it's still a fantastic book. I don't know why it says volume 1 because there isn't a volume 2. I don't know if he had intended to do one. This is a great book. It's an expensive one too, but I recommend having it on your shelf if you like to read about pipes and you like to collect pipe books. This is kind of a must for me. Again, the information in it, I wouldn't read it as gospel anymore. It probably was at the time that it came out. Probably isn't now, for obvious reasons, I think, right? And the last book from Richard Hacker is Pipe Smoking in the 21st Century. This was published in 2000. Now, what I will say about this one, it's only 162 pages, and it really should not have been called Pipe Smoking for the 21st Century because it doesn't say anything about the internet. It's was published in 2000, so I mean the whole internet craze with pipe smoking, the cigar boom was kind of just happening and just unfolding when this was put out. And I'll tell you this book has a lot of similar information in it to the one he published in 83. So it's almost like this was kind of like not an afterthought, but like maybe just updated like a few pages. But many of the chapters that are in this 21st Century Guide are in the Ultimate Pipe Book. Buy the Ultimate Pipe Book. You don't really need this one. And like I said, it says pipe smoking for the 21st century. It's not. Like I said, there's no mention about the internet in this book or what it's done to revolutionize connecting people. There's no social media. There's nothing on this. And there wouldn't be because it was just published in 2000, 25 years ago. So hard to say that this is a guide for the 21st century when you published it the first year of the century, right? So, okay, that's 17 minutes. The other thing I should mention is during the 90s, Richard Hacker also put out the first edition. In 93, he put out the Ultimate Cigar Book, which is it's now on its fourth edition. Shows you how popular this has been. This was kind of groundbreaking, I think, because at the time, it was the first, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was definitely one, if not the first, it was definitely one of the early cigar books to explain how to smoke a cigar, how to look for a cigar, the different types of leaf, how cigars are made. So it was kind of cutting edge at that time. And considering it's in its this is the fourth edition, published in 2015. Yeah, 2015. So, you know, when you're on your fourth printing, it shows you that there's a huge demand for it, right? It's a very popular book. I have emailed Richard Hacker several times. He has a website. I don't know if it's still functional. He's never responded to me. He's never published a pipe book since '99. He seems to be more into cigars and alcohol now. So I don't know if he still smokes a pipe. That's kind of why I wanted to contact him, get him some, just get some information from him. But no dice. So I don't know where Richie is. If I had better technical skills, I would splice in here the Steven Seagal scene of, has anybody seen Richie? From one of Seagal's movies. I can't remember which one it was. He had a lot back in the 90s, but that is, if you know what I'm talking about, Where's Richie with Steven Seagal? Pretty funny. So I would have put that in here, but I'm not that tech savvy. Okay, I think I'm just going to keep going. Even though we're pulling up on 20 minutes, I got to go get the other books because, like I said, I didn't bring them all here. So that's sort of from the 1950s to 2000. And give me a sec here. Let me smoke my pipe. Let me go get the other books, and I'll kind of show you some of the newer books that have come out in the last 20 years. Okay, let's keep rocking and rolling here. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this one. This book was quite popular. It was first published, I think, in 2003, 2006, 2010 by Rick Newcomb. Sumner Publications out of Los Angeles. I don't know if that's self-published. Summer Books. So, and it's pretty lengthy. which is nice. 262 pages, In Search of Pipe Dreams. Got some colored photos in there. Still available. Very reasonable price. I think it's like 25 bucks Canadian. There is another one. Still searching for pipe dreams. Much smaller, less than half the size of this book. This book is by and large, it's a collection of essays I think he wrote throughout the 80s, 90s with some new information, but it reads like a book. It's very well put together, very well published, very well written. I recommend this one. This is a great book too. And it focuses primarily, he does talk about factory pipes, but there's a lot of content in here about artisan pipes. And the only criticism that I've seen of this book is that it feels elitist. And it feels elitist because it is elitist. And that's just what it is. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. He travels throughout Europe, going to see individual pipe carvers, you know, drinking wine and cognac, having dinner with them, and then dropping like $2-3 grand on a pipe. I'm pretty sure most of us reading this book don't have that kind of lifestyle. So that's why it comes off as elitist, because it is. And I don't say that, I just say it as a matter of fact, right? I mean, when you're gallivanting around Europe, having dinner with these pipe makers and then dropping 2K on a pipe, it's the upper echelons of society, and a lot of people have that kind of cash to throw around, especially these days. But that doesn't mean it's a bad book. I don't think it is. If you don't care about artisan pipes, you like your Cobbs, you like your standard Petersons, spending a couple $100 on a Peterson or a Sav, maybe this book's not for you. But if you like to read about pipes, don't let this put you off. That it's got a lot of content about higher end pipe carvers. It's a great book. It's a fun book. I highly recommend it. I don't think Rick Newcomb wrote this intentionally as, hey, look what I'm doing, guys. I'm traveling all around Europe. Look at the cool things I get to do. I don't think that was the intent of the book. The intent of the book was to bring this information to anybody, any pipe smoker. So again, don't let that turn you off. It's a great book. Highly recommend it. And like I said, the second, which is kind of just a continuation, the second book that he put out, Still Searching for Pipe Dreams, was published in 2012 and then in 2013, also by Summer Books. And so this is in its third printing, so obviously doing very well. And they're both still available on Amazon. The other book I want to mention before, and I don't have a physical copy of it, it's very difficult to get. Not only if you want to pay a lot of money for it, it commands a lot of money, and it's hard to find, is Fred Hanna's, oh, I gotta pause this. Well, you know what, I gotta pause this. I gotta get the name right, because it's could be the best pipe book ever written. Fred Hanna, The Perfect Smoke, published 2013, 286 pages. It's a collection of articles, many of them updated though, but articles that Fred had written. I don't know if they're all from the North American Society of Pipe Collectors, but that's who published it as well. I don't know if all those articles are from the North American Pipes, the Pipe Collector magazine, but many of them are. They're, so it's a collection of essays published over the last, from the 80s and 90s, and from the turn of the last century. And they've been updated, and I gotta say, of all the books that I've shown you, that's probably the best one written about pipe smoking in total up to today. You can still get, I have it on Kindle. You can't get it, like I said, it comes up in estate sales and people want like $200 or $300 for it. Forget it. For me, that ain't worth it. I'd love to have a hard copy, and I think a lot of people would. When I go on pipe forums, people are always asking for it. I've done it too. It's just very, very difficult to find. I'm actually surprised that they haven't republished that book again, because as far as I can tell, it has a huge demand for it. Talks about everything in great detail, to tasting tobacco, how to clean your pipe, how to smoke a pipe, blending tobaccos and stuff. It's just a wealth of information. It's the best pipe book that I've read. Not that I've read tons, but I like to think I've read a decent amount. And for any pipe smoker, novice or experienced, whether you've been smoking a pipe for 1 or 2 years or you've been smoking a pipe for 25 years like me, you're going to learn something in that book. Like, if tobacco had an asshole, I think Fred Hanna lives in it. So then it's not an insult. Like, this guy has, I think he eats, sleeps, and breathes pipe smoking and tobacco tasting. There's that scene in Casino where Joe Pesci's talking about Sam Rothstein, Robert De Niro's character, and he's talking about him. He's like the genius guy for betting, right, on sports. And Nikki, Joe Pesci's character, says, yeah, like, the guy took his job so seriously. I don't think he ever really even enjoyed it. I'm not suggesting Fred Hanna doesn't enjoy it. He loves it, but I'm saying he just, the knowledge that this man has, because I've seen him in other interviews online, YouTube interviews, and the guy is just, I love pipes and tobacco, but when I listen to this guy talk and the experiments that he's done, I'm just like, holy shit. Like, I think he's a professor too. I think he has a PhD. I think he's a professor as well. And I'm like, you're like, dude, how do you have time to do anything else? Like, his knowledge and his personal experience and what he's done tasting, what he's done to his own pipes in terms of, studying them, different types of tobacco, different environments, different different climates. Like, the guy's just an encyclopedia. Anyways, that's all I'll say. That's really about it. I don't really want to blabble on. This is 27 minutes. Hopefully you saw some of those books in there maybe you haven't seen before. Go ahead and try and find them on, like I said, the newer ones published in, this century. Rick Newcomb. Actually, I forgot one. How could I forget? This is the latest pipe book published, and it's from a Canadian. I should be ashamed of myself for almost skipping over this one. It's not that I skipped over it. I have spoken about it before, but after Fred Hanna and Rick Newcomb's, this was published last year, and I have shown this before. Charles Lemon, Brigham Pipes, A History of Brigham Pipes. 96 pages, half of which is kind of an appendix, so you're looking at 40 to 50 pages of content. Great book, well published, well written. The only thing I'd say about this, it's a little, I would have liked to have seen more of a deep dive in the history of Brigham, which I think Charles was in the position to write. Now, in his defense, I don't think that was the purpose of the book. I think a good portion of the purpose of the book, knowing his website, was to really dig in and to present and to publish the the stampings, the markings of the pipes, and the shapes of the pipes, which he's done an incredible job at. So if you're a Brigham fan, and you're looking for, shape charts, the stamps from patented stamps, you have to own this book. So Charles lives in Toronto. I believe he was at the Brigham head office in Toronto. That's why I say, oh, look at that. I lost my light. That means it's time to wrap this up. So all these books are good. No matter what I've said about them, they're all good books. If you like to read about pipes, you like to read about pipe smoking and tobacco, all these books are good. Some are better than others, but they're all good. So with that, enjoy the rest of your weekend, your Saturday night, and I will see you guys next weekend. Take care.